Michael Voris.
Hi.
He's pretty awesome. He's
What do you mean pretty awesome?
okay. He's
Very.
awesome. He's brilliant. He's charming, and he's funny, and he's fun. I mean, this is a really.
Oh wait,
isn't it
here,
great?
I can get more of us in. There, you can let go.
Well, what inspires you? Who or what inspires you?
Well, that's a good question. Essentially, the teachings of the church, and then everything that goes into that. Our Lord, it's His church, the Blessed Mother. You know, my reversion of the faith because of my mother. I mean, everything. So, you know, just have to justice and truth. As we pray for every day, justice and truth.
Thank you so much.
Many longtime donors and premium members of Church Militant are reeling from the scandals about Michael Voris and Church Militant's incompetence. Many are going through a grieving process. First, Christine Niles resigns, and then the news broke about Michael Voris, and poof, the vortex goes away, and so does Voris. How do you emotionally detach from something that has been a part of your life for many years? Trust has been broken. Your hard-earned money donated to Church Militant is essentially gone due to a board of directors who didn't uphold their fiduciary responsibilities. With Church Militant on the brink of collapse, what do you do now? As a follower, what do you do with Michael Voris's departure? We need to be careful who we follow or put our time and energy into. Why are we inclined to follow someone? What are the signs of a good leader? What are the warning signs of a toxic leader? Well, our next guest, Lynn Griesemer, is a former Army officer, human resource manager, and has served in various leadership roles in various organizations. She's the mother of 6 young adults and the author of Porn Free: How to Decrease the Demand for Pornography, among other books. Her research in pornography has given her a basic understanding in sex trafficking, sex abuse, and other sexual deviances. Lynn had a Church Militant premium membership for 1 year and enjoyed Right Season series with Dr. Charles Rice and mic'd up interviews. She watched the Daily Vortex and headline news for 3 years. She attended 2 Church Militant retreats at sea and has read Michael Voris's 3 books. With the sudden departure of Michael Voris, Lynn experienced a void, a level of grieving, and she suspects she isn't the only one who feels this way. It made her think about leadership and idolatry. Let me introduce you to Lynn. Hey, Lynn, and first I want to say to you, welcome, but most importantly, thank you for your service.
Thank you so much. And I felt inspired to talk with you. Thank you so much for the programs you're putting out, trying to give us information and help us make sense of all of this. It's coming at a very good time. And I'm just glad to be here to talk about, I mean, I was blindsided. I was blindsided when Michael Voris left. I was like, wow, what is going on? So yeah, well, I'd love to talk about the things today. Yes.
Well, Lynn, to start us off, I have something I want to read to you because you have not seen this yet, and the audience, and I received it this morning, and it ties in perfectly, Lynn, about what we're talking about.
Okay.
So let me read this. I got this from a former Church Militant staffer who wants to remain anonymous. And she says, "Hi, Christine. I've been really hesitant to voice any opinion here, but I thought I might be able to give some insight from my many years being involved at Church Militant. I left in 2016 because of the revelations about Michael Voris's past and how it was handled. So I'm coming at this a few years removed, but what's going on, it seems like a lot of the stuff is still the same." From listening to your reporting on this, it seems like maybe you think that Church Militant was a legitimate business that went awry. I really believe this was never a legitimate business, and it's always been a cult following Michael Voris. The board, while I'm sure they should shoulder some of the blame, I think it's worth mentioning that I don't think they ever expected to be in the position they are in now. It was just a list of Michael Voris's inner circle so that they could check a box on government papers and operate within the nonprofit system. The board never expected to meet or perform any of the duties that a board performs. The whole operation was seen as Michael's project. He is the gifted one, the prophet of our time. He doesn't need business advice or oversight. I mean, he's practically a saint, right? Who are they to question his decisions? I don't think anyone was picked to be on the board because of their ability to contribute or offer advice or provide oversight. They were picked because Michael Voris could trust them not to question him. They are his friends or people he groomed in a spiritual sense to think that they would be damned if they didn't work for Church Militant, and they all believed in the mission. I just thought I would offer that insight, Christine. Lynn, this is a perfect place to start. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, and that is very troubling, and that people follow someone is a form of idolatry. So forget the Hindu gods and the idols of working long hours and whatever idols we can follow. It's a form of idolatry, and to tell you the truth, there are many people in his inner circle that are probably surprised that didn't see this coming either. They look up to you. We look up to a leader to get a sense of security. The leader is strong. The leader is influential, charming. They offer us something that we latch onto. And it doesn't mean that we are weak. It doesn't mean that we are unintelligent. It just means that they offer us something that is very appealing.
Well, Lynn, let me ask you this. When you were on the retreat by sea, you had mentioned to me that you had felt a sort of kind of a cult following. Is that accurate or not?
Okay, well, a lot of people think that Michael Voris is the brand of Church Militant. So when he goes and when he left, the whole organization is crumbling. Now, the first retreat at sea that I went to was in 2020, and I had a really good time on that right before COVID. It was 7 days, kind of a long time for me on a cruise. I would love a 3 to 5 day cruise. Michael Voris gave all of the talks, all 7. So I was like, wow, usually a business conference will spread the load and have different people and different perspectives giving talks or workshops, and he gave them all. They were good. I didn't notice that I really saw any kind of a cult following on that trip. At the end, he got up and he gave his, what I like to call, sob story, or his past, where his brother died and the next year his mother died, and the mother was on her deathbed, and he soon found out that his grandfather raped his mother, and she had bipolar and she had all of this and that, and he said he had a homosexual lifestyle for 15 or 20 years in his 20s, 30s, 40s. So that was a big emotional appeal. He shed some tears. The audience, maybe many of them knew. I knew at that time. So there was this great emotional appeal, and sometimes charismatic people can really push your buttons emotionally. So the first retreat was okay. And then I guess where I lost interest in Church Militant, I discovered Church Militant end of 2018. I thought, wow, this man he's assertive. He's a great communicator. And he's the only one who I felt was telling it like it is, who is giving us news. And then to me, it deteriorated in a year or so when President Trump did not get elected. First of all, during the elections, this Catholic channel was, we're going to show full coverage on the election. You have to vote. You're Catholic. You have to vote Republican, blah, blah, blah. So it was becoming more militant than church. It was very more political than holy. So I was losing a little interest, and I'm not a fighter. I'm not one to go talk to my bishop, to talk to my priest, to kind of, hey, this is going wrong with the church. I guess many of us looked at Michael to be the one to lead the way and to do that, and we just kind of consumed the content. And I didn't like a couple times on both retreats where he would, single out the audience. Hey, anybody here talk to your bishop or your priest recently? Nobody raises their hands. And he called, you cowards. And I'm just like, I was like a little stung, like, you're calling the people coming to your retreat, you're calling us cowards. Well, guess what? We're not these alpha male pit bulls who are fighters like you are. Maybe that's what you want to do. And so I don't feel like he was inspiring us to go fight. I saw that Church Militant organization wasn't really open to suggestions. A couple times I tried talking with him, and this last one, he totally was like either uncomfortable or didn't want to be there. He was just kind of politely dealing with us because some of us walked up to talk to him. So he was being polite. And, one of my suggestions was make these cruises 3 to 5 days, invite homeschool families, invite where people can take time off of their lives and their work for 3, 4, 5 days. And 7 days is a lot. And then I suggested, hey, have Christine or Brad, Eli, or somebody else give a talk and spread it around. And I soon found out that the same format has been going on for years. You have a 7-day retreat. You have Michael Voris give all the talks. And so I'm not going to say there's a problem with that. That's just, not maybe what I wanted or whatever. But as far as being, oh, yes. Okay, so one time on this recent retreat, September 23rd to the 30th, a great part of the retreat was where the retreatants would meet at like 8 o'clock at night, and we would just have informal talks, socializing, networking, and it was great. And so I would show up late to these because I enjoyed the entertainment on the cruise. So I'm paying for the cruise, so I'm going to enjoy some of the entertainment. So I showed up, and there were about maybe 10 people in a circle, and the question was, well, how did you come across Michael? And I was like, I think I corrected them. Oh, how did I come across Church Militant? Because I wanted to support the mission of Church Militant, not one person, Michael. And I'm like, oh, and I just said how I came across him. And I even used this term with somebody I had breakfast with the next day. I'm like, oh, sometimes it's a little cult-like. And but nothing to the point of some of our massive cults that end in harm, physical harm, death, Jim Jones, abuse, and all of that. So it's cult-like. I would say Church Militant is cult-like. And then hearing some more of the stories come out after he left. People in the inner groups of cults protect the leader. Either they buy into it or they're protecting it. And so when I first heard that Michael Voris left, my daughter sent me something on Instagram, the letter, signed the Church Militant board. So I went online and I'm like, oh, who's the Church Militant board members? Thinking that there are people in the community, people who are not tied intimately into the day-to-day operation. Usually a board are community business people and whatnot. And I saw nothing about a board. I saw nothing about Michael Voris leaving. I tuned into the headline news the next day. Nothing. And I'm like, wow. And then so let me hold up a Christmas card I got a couple of weeks ago. I got this Christmas card. I went to the mail and I opened it up. Oh, something from Church Militant. Are they ever going to explain themselves? Something happened. As an Army officer, we had public affairs officers. When something big went down with a leader, with a unit, with something, you had something be a liaison to the public, to the members, as a responsibility to all of these people who were suddenly used to a certain format, and then nothing. So we got nothing. So I get this Christmas card in the mail, and it's nice. We wish you obedience to God is what matters. As Church Militant seeks to obey the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit and honor the most Holy Virgin Mary, Mother of God, we do so in the face of criticism, uncertainty, and marked success too, blah, blah, blah. And by the way, send us $100. You want me to send you money and you're not explaining what happened with your organization, what's going on with your organization? I don't think so. And I was very surprised of Michael Voris's sudden departure, because on the retreat at sea on September 28th, or a couple nights before, I walked in and he was talking about plans for the future in the fall, meaning I thought October, November, coming real soon. In the fall, I'm going to go meet with someone in Alabama who might gift us pretty much a studio that's almost ready to be up and running, and blah, blah, blah. And it's on lots of acres and it offers more than what we have here. And so he was talking about the future. And meanwhile, he and Christine get on their little announcements. I've been thinking about a year for putting in a resignation and I'm just like, well, what is going on? Are you really growing your organization? Are you wanting to grow it? Are you living in la la land? Is this why do you even mention it publicly on the cruise ship to all of us? So I was surprised at that. But when I heard about his departure, I was like, what? Like, what happened? So we, I think, are entitled to have some type of explanation. You can still keep things private, but give us an explanation. So I went on a little bit further than the cult for a minute there.
Well, I agree with you. Saying that he broke a morality clause isn't good enough. And he really owes the donors and the premium subscribers an honest explanation of what's going on. Church Militant, the board does, because, you know, when they went after priests and bishops, they went after them with a vengeance.
Mm-hmm.
And they wanted an explanation. And I can tell you, Lynn, from working there, you know, the 6 short months that I was there, when I would call Archdiocese, all I had to do was say, I'm Christine Harrington with Church Militant, click. They wouldn't even talk to you if they heard that you were from Church Militant, or you'd get a real awkward pause. What do you want?
Okay.
And then I would say, I want to comment about blah, blah, blah. And we'll get back to you. And of course, they never did. And it really bothered me, Lynn, being in the Catholic community, that they were despised that much.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very difficult. We always want to be unitive. We want to unite. We want to be approachable. We want to have the door open for dialogue, even if we disagree. And so there are a number of reasons why they hung up on you. It could have been Church Militant was like an aggressive bulldog coming after a story. Maybe there was credibility to it. Maybe people didn't want to hear, you know, in the 1970s and 80s, 60 Minutes on CBS. Oh my gosh, if you're on 60 Minutes is going to be negative and expose something. So Church Militant could have had a reputation for being very bold and maybe for getting to the truth. And if you're hiding something, you don't want to talk to anyone. On the other hand, if you're just so aggressive, I mean, a good reporter or journalist, to me, has to be open, lay the groundwork for openness for someone to talk to you and to treat fairly. So there could be a number of reasons, you know, going on for that. But yeah, that's disappointing. So then what happens is, if you get that reputation, now you're going to maybe cut your resources down, and only a handful of people are going to want to talk to you. And I talked to some other retreatants, and you know, they went to a trusted priest and they said, oh, we're going on a Church Militant cruise. Oh, don't do that. And I'm like, wow, what's the reputation? I never knew that Church Militant had such a bad reputation. But see, I had only been, thankfully, I've only was a premium subscriber for 1 year. We got our value out of it. We got the good education. Now, Michael Voris is a good interviewer. When he's on camera, he's a listener. He responds. I think he was a very good interviewer for the mic'd up episodes that we saw. And so we took the good out of Church Militant. And one thing I think I'd like to say to people who did put a lot of money into Church Militant, just know that when you give money, you are not liable or responsible for how they use that money. If you didn't know that they were corrupt, if they were misusing money financially, you didn't know. So you gave your money freely. Now that you know, boom, pull back, don't give any money unless they're telling you where it's going, what we're spending it on, what our future plans are, what's going on now, how many employees we have, who's heading up Church Militant. If you don't know basic information and you don't trust, see, what happened was our trust has been demolished. And I see Church Militant as a Titanic that's sinking. You can't put patches on the Titanic. To me, it should just go down. It should just sink to the bottom of the ocean, and somehow people can create a new organization or whatever they want to do. But it's just, to me, it's so far gone. You need to know when to fold a business or when to try to save it. And first of all, I'm no expert on businesses. I don't know the inner workings of Church Militant. My perspective here today is as a content consumer. I wouldn't call myself a fan of Church Militant or a fan of Michael Voris. I enjoyed the content for a while, and it slowly went down. And I went on the cruise because we had two good friends who were going on the cruise, and I generally enjoyed it. But it's been deteriorating, and I notice it, and I think other people have noticed that as well.
You had shared with me on the phone that one of the staffers came up to you on the cruise, and I'm not sure if I got the words right, Lynn, so you can correct me, but they basically told you not to disturb Michael. Was that it? Or
oh, okay. Nobody came up to me personally, but Michael was protected. He always was protected, like a celebrity. On the first cruise in 2020, and I shouldn't name names, but one of the organizers of the cruise got behind the microphone. Michael's very busy. He needs to go eat lunch. He needs to go work on the vortex. So pretty much don't bother him. You can come back for question and answer. And so, okay, I can get that. But I just felt the general feeling was he's unapproachable. And on the first cruise, I saw that he had some time. So I went over to him and tapped him on the shoulder. And then my husband came over and we talked to him for 5 minutes. We had a very nice conversation. We thought he was a nice guy. And we told people when we came back, yeah, the Michael Voris you see in front of the camera, the reporters have the sing-song, the same formulaic way of speaking, and they have a persona. And in person, he was very nice in 2020. So we were very impressed. But yes, his time was guarded, and it's almost like he had invisible bodyguards around him. So when you go on these cruises, I would have loved to have him just, hey, Michael's going to come hang out. We're going to do karaoke at 10 o'clock in the such and such lounge if you want to come. He never really interacted with us on any personal time. So perhaps he needed rest. And that's another thing. If someone is still doing a workaholic, that they're still doing a vortex every day, they're giving all 7 or 8 talks, I mean, they're not going to have time for you. And that would be the perfect opportunity to mix with the people. So I was hoping that, we'd see a little mixing going on. So I took advantage of getting to know the other retreatants.
So based on your experiences on the cruises and the extensive research you have done, what exactly would you say is narcissistic behavior, idolatry behavior that kind of morphs into cult behavior?
All right. Well, idolatry is extreme admiration, love, or reverence for something or someone. And when a person, a great way to get to this is repetition. So Michael was smart. I don't know for how many years, 10 or more years, he would do the vortex every day. We had regularity coming at us. We could look forward to it. We I guess you feel a sense of security, but it builds. He's building his brand with the repetition. So that's one with idolatry. And we have to be very careful of idolatry because we are looking to fill a void. And my void was educational. I did not know about bishops and priests and the problem with homosexuality and the problem with abuse and all these other things until I started to listen to Church Militant. Then I started looking around to other YouTube channels, and they were not saying the same thing as Church Militant was. So I started putting more of my attention into Church Militant. Then when you start putting your attention into one person or one organization, you almost, I'm not going to say you block out the other information, but I was drawn more to it. And I don't think I really fell into idolatry. I don't know that I was a fan. It might have started out that way. But people will gravitate to something maybe that they don't have. Michael Voris has a very strong personality, and you almost would watch the show and say, yes, go, you're right. Oh my gosh, what are we going to do about this? What are our solutions? So you slowly build. It slowly builds. A charismatic personality builds over time. Okay, so let's just talk about a couple of cults. Jim Jones, the People's Temple in San Francisco. It slowly built over a number of years, and he had many, many followers that followed him to their deaths. You have Nexium, Keith Lanier, the NVXIM cult. It took very young, want to say wealthy women, impressionable. They actually branded on their abdomens his initials. They followed him into a really sexual abuse, horrible situation. Other cult leaders, Heaven's Gate, Marshall Applegate, people followed him because he was charming. He gave them answers nobody else gave them. A lot of these cult leaders. Okay, let's talk about Warren Jeffers of the FLDS. Please do not mistake the Mormon Church for FLDS. The fundamentalist Latter-day Saints have nothing to do with the Mormon religion. The Mormons are not polygamists. This goes way back in history. It's something separate. If you have any Mormon friends and you say, oh, FLDS and polygamy, no. That was a cult where he had 78 wives. How do you even have time for that? And he had so many children, and he abused children, women. His father was 85, married a 19-year-old who didn't want to marry him. And what happened in this cult was people are afraid to speak up. The fear develops. That should be a red flag in an organization, a business organization. If you are afraid to speak up to your boss or your next boss or somebody, if you cannot speak what you feel and you're afraid, then you need to examine yourself. That is not a healthy situation. That is not. Or if you do things that you do not want to do. And another situation.
And Lynn, let me stop you right there.
Okay.
There was a lot of fear within the staffers at Church Militant because of Voris's just rants that he would go on and force the staffers to say certain things that were very denigrating about themselves. That's where I was like, this is not healthy. This is not good. I have never worked in a corporation, let alone a Catholic organization, that would do this. And one person said to me, Lynn, privately, one of the Church Militant employees said to me privately, you know, when I started working here, I didn't take a vow to Church Militant.
Yeah.
Because they tried to, and they said this, we run it like a monastery.
What? Okay, strange. So first of all, a human being should never be bullied, an adult especially. You shouldn't yell at your children. Sometimes you have to yell if they're going to run out into the street and traffic. There's really not much place for bullying, name calling, yelling, domineering. Okay, now we can get into narcissism. Focus on the self. It's all about me. I know best. I don't have to listen to you. I'm keeping an image. Now let's get into psychopathy, psychopath. A psychopath, and when Hunter said he went into the office to kind of give a 2-week notice and to have a chat, and Michael Voris tried to persuade him and talk him around in circles and talk, and then he was yelling and yelling, and Hunter was in tears. And then a few hours later, hey, come over to my place. We can watch a movie or have steaks. A few hours later, he's all nice. That is not nice behavior. It's whether it's conscious or unconscious, you need to run in the opposite direction. That I would not want to make friends. Okay, so here's the problem though. You're an employee, your livelihood, you're working there. You will have to decide whether you want to subject yourself to this abuse, to this verbal abuse, bullying, yelling at. Now, once in a while, if a person goes off the handle because they had a bad day, or the ship is sinking, you're losing money, there's high stress, and your boss, just kind of has an outburst one time. Okay, if this was a regular thing, what cult leaders do is they break you down and they want to rebuild you to shape you into who they want. They might pick a certain type of employee. They want to shape you. Jim Jones blasted loud music. I think in loud so that people couldn't sleep. Music.
And that's what happened in the pit. We had this loud, all the news channels on, which was Lynn. Even Hunter said it was hard to focus. It was hard to focus.
That's right. Break you down mentally so you don't have your individual opinions. And as time goes by little, you are starting to think like the boss, be like the boss, behave like the boss. It'd be very interesting. Someone who's known him for 10 or 15 years, if they came in calm and subdued, and then over time, you change into a person that you're not really who you are.
I saw that with my own eyes with one person who wishes to remain anonymous.
Wow.
The man was very nice, but towards the end, when I decided I've had enough, he turned into another Michael Voris. I mean, right before my eyes in 6 months. It's like, boom, it happened.
Yeah.
And you said something interesting, Lynn, that I want to explore further too. Mm-hmm. And that is, if it's a one-time outburst by an employer, he's under a lot of stress. He just has this outburst, and he yells at the staff. Usually they will come back and apologize to the staff.
Yes.
We have never gotten an apology from any of Michael Voris's outbursts.
Yeah, I got this card. No explanation, no apology, or a sadness, a sense of I know you supporters are probably upset and wondering, and we feel for you. And I feel for all of the employees, past and present. There are still probably employees present who are suffering. So I really don't want to make this podcast a criticism. I want to delve into what you should be looking for in the workplace that you are going to decide to work in. And your job and your soul and yourself is never more important than, your job is never more important than your inner soul. And you need to walk away and go to another organization who will appreciate you. So let me ask you, in your job, anybody watching this, are you respected? Are you able to share an idea to make your job better, to make the company better? If someone doesn't want to hear from you, then they ought to just hire robots, hire a mechanical robot that's non-thinking to take care of the tasks, because we all bring something to the workplace, and you will have a highly functioning workplace if the right people are in the position, if the people are given some autonomy. That's it. You must have some autonomy in your job. Any job that you have, you should be able to have self-respect, decency, respect by your boss, by your coworkers. Also, another thing, if little cliques form, if information is not shared. But again, if you're afraid and you don't want to share anything and you're keeping silent, Now also, I tend to think that why the head of Church Militant was let go or resigned was not a one-time thing. Something must have been going on repeatedly for months or even years. That's a big decision. Everybody knew Michael Voris was the brand. So for the board, for someone to get kicked out, I thought this is major. And it's alleged that homosexual activity breaks the moral clause. But what I want to say is one sin sometimes begets another. Throw in their narcissism and arrogance and pride, and wow, it's a runaway train. So now if there's a sexual sin, is there a financial sin? Is there, and you once said, Christine, on a show that, oh, maybe Michael wanted to get caught. And I want to say, maybe not. But when you start taking risks, you take more and more risks. I bet he got caught. Every time he came on and publicly admitted something, I'm going to guess that he got caught. And so I just want to hold up my book, Porn Free, How to Decrease the Demand for Pornography. I wrote this and it came out last year. Do you know that in most cases, 99% cases, if a spouse or a boyfriend or a girlfriend, mainly men, I'm focusing on 75%, it's a higher incidence of sex buyers and porn users are men. And mostly all the time they get caught. And it's a lot to deal with. And so I hope that when you get caught, you get on your hands and knees and you cry and you say, oh my gosh, what has become of me? How am I destructing other people around me? Hundreds, if not thousands of people probably have suffered because of Michael Voris's departure. The people who trusted, the people who gave money, the people who, I'm not angry, I'm disappointed, but there are people out there who are probably angry.
Yeah, there are. I've talked to them. And one of the other traits of narcissism is the inability to show compassion or empathy. And the way that Michael berated Hunter just because he turned in his 2-month notice gives us another clue about the narcissistic personality. Lynn, and this is interesting, I have another channel for my business, The Savvy Sales Lady. I'm a sales coach and trainer. And I did a video on narcissistic clients and how to deal with them. And that was my top watched video.
Oh, yes.
That's how prevalent it has become in this social media crazy world. And on top of it, I'm really glad that you showed your book. Would you show it one more time?
Okay.
Because folks, I'm going to put the link to this at the bottom of this video. And I'm also going to put links of Lynn's other books that you can look at and all of her social media so you can follow this remarkable woman who has put in a lot of research into what we're talking about today. And Lynn, and here's something that I'd like to pivot to. So in the last 48 hours, Michael Voris has tweeted twice. And he tweeted out his response when he resigned. Then he tweeted on Thanksgiving. Then he tweeted on Christmas Day. And then he tweeted today. And of course, they're all, he's preaching. He's preaching to his audience.
Okay.
This is a sign, folks, that Michael Voris doesn't plan to go away, but this is also a sign of his addiction to be in front of people. What's your opinion about that, Lynn?
My opinion about that is I don't know if he's ready to change from his moral problems. A person who is devastated probably would go away in silence and get rehab. So my thought to the people who are tempted to listen to this, which I'm done. He showed me I'm done. I'm not curious. I'm just not curious. So the people who are tempted to follow it, please don't. What are you gaining from this person? He is not authentic. He's not honest. His character is severely flawed. And now pivot and look at yourself. Why is it that you're so intrigued that you want to follow this person? What is it that you really want to latch onto? And what I want to say, what I found in my book, on my book Porn Free, and my research, I've known a lot of it about pornography over the years. I'm an advocate for long-lasting, happy marriage. Porn has no business in a marriage relationship, and really in anyone's life. But the people, pornography is a baseline to a lot of garbage. It's a foundation to. I'm involved in the Tampa Bay area, trying to stamp out sex trafficking, and there's a wonderful organization. It's rebranding itself to a new name, Sexual Integrity Project. And what they do is they get men who were buyers of prostitutes and strip bars, mainly prostitutes. Their lives were ruined. People lose marriages. Some people hang on, and their marriage is in recovery. And it's a wonderful organization that finds these Johns and helps them recover. It takes at least 2 to 5 years, basically, if you've had this habit. But porn is a baseline to that. Pedophiles, porn, 85 to 95% child molesters and pedophiles. So what I want to say is, if Michael Voris has, it sounds like there was predatory behaviors going on, predatory. Okay, think about that. Do you want to follow a predator? Do you want to follow someone who is not owning up and not explaining himself? We don't need to let everyone know all of our sins, but we should have some type of explanation. So what I want to say to the people who are apt to follow, you're not getting the full story. Are you happy with just getting a part of the story? And, I have 3 of his books. And I'm going to use this book because this is my favorite, The Weapon, The Rosary is Your Weapon. This was really good. Just some of his writings were good. So instead of following him now, presently into the future, watch his interviews with Charles Rice or one of his former books, some of his old stuff that didn't mix his character. But it's too much. It's just too much to follow a person. And I lost a good thought. Maybe it'll come back, but
I do that all the time.
Stay away.
Yeah,
stay away. It's not doing you any good. Find a wholesome person. Okay. Another thing too is some people might need to reprogram from this cult or process. And so Dr. Ross Rosenberg is good on narcissism. Dr. Les Carter is pretty good on narcissism. You can find them on YouTube. Dr. Ramani, I think is her first name. I can't remember her first name. There's a lot of good content on narcissism. And let me just put out there to everybody, Dr. Marshall Rosenberg, nonviolent communication. Everybody who's sat there and subjected himself and felt fear in Church Militant, go look up Dr. Marshall Rosenberg, nonviolent communication. These are the kind of communicators that you're looking for in life. People who are respectful, who are listening, who don't yell at you and bully you. It's a very low base human way of interacting. If you're going to yell at someone, if you're going to, shout at them and bring them down to nothing, even a coach on a team, even a top notch, I don't know. There's no place for it. I don't know what your attraction to him would be at this point.
Well, let me ask you this. Lynn, given your research on pornography and those issues, some people think that he's going to go to rehab and then come back and be a whole new Michael Voris. It's my experience from my abortion healing that I have had to go through. Mm-hmm. It takes decades to get through, and especially the level of trauma he had as a child and then growing up. What are your thoughts about that?
I have 2 words to a 12-month or a 6-month rehab. Hell no. Is that going to change you? Hell no. All right. First of all, in his speech, he said, oh, this goes back 62 years. Bing, bing, bing. Okay, 62 years. Were you abused? Did your father abuse you? Did your grandfather abuse you? The grandfather who raped his mother, it's not a one isolated situation. It's generational. It goes on. Okay, so pornography, when we talk about pedophilia, child sex abuse, child sex trafficking, if anyone knows about this, another thing of the cult, people are quiet. They don't speak up. They won't tell. If you have any indication that an adult person is with a child, you need to call the police. There are signals to look for. There are websites that can tell you a kid who doesn't speak for himself, a kid who puts their head down in eyes and doesn't speak. It's just, if there are ever children involved in a situation, you better not be protecting an adult. I think the reason I write my book here and I do my work, I'm I said I'm a marriage advocate. I'm an advocate for husband and wife home birth. And I do this because there's so much abuse against women and children. And even there's abuse against men. In the porn industry, there's a lot of abuse against men as well. If we adults cannot take action, this is where we need the courage. Forget the courage to go talk to your bishop or your priest. Have the courage to do something very difficult. If you're the only one and you think you're in a cult, you need to exit out quietly. You need to take some type of action. If you see a child, if you know domestic abuse going on, please do not sit by and be quiet, because now you're part of the problem if you don't take action on atrocities against human beings.
We are called as Catholics to forgive others that have hurt us.
Mm-hmm.
In this situation with Church Militant and Michael Voris, we are called to forgive them, but that doesn't mean we should forget
Correct.
what happened.
Yeah.
You can forgive but that doesn't mean you should act like, oh, it's all good now. No, it's not.
Correct.
These are all warning signs that Lynn is giving you, so that if you do decide to support another Catholic nonprofit, you will know the signs to look for as a healthy nonprofit organization.
In answer to the last question about how long will it take to recover, several years, 2 to 5 years. For men who've been doing prostitutes, it's a minimum of 2 years. It's a minimum of 2 years. You got so deep into a habit, into a lifestyle, into an addiction, and someone who has had homosexual tendencies and activities for 10, 20, 25 years, it's going to be tough to, I mean, what really gave me clues too, what was this Milo? I don't think there was a flirtation going on a mic'd up with Milo, but there was, all of a sudden he interviews Milo, and then a year goes by and Milo says, I'm Catholic and now I'm starting a recovery center, or whatever it's called, a rehabilitation or something in Fort Lauderdale. And I'm like, dude, you need 5 years. This character was a very flamboyant comedian, and I'm just like, you can't just tell me within the next year, boom, I'm healed and now I'm starting something. And then he had another person on, Jesse Lee Peterson, and I looked into this person and I'm like, what? Who are you giving the microphone to? There are many, that's probably was a downfall as well. There were many good guests he had on, but I'm like, wow, this is not high quality. This is who you're putting in front of us. And
Milo was in the studio for about the same time I was there for 6 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So he was in studio. That's a story for another day. But one of the things that came out, presented to the board, keeping the individual anonymous because he did not want to come forward. But this one young staffer, male staffer, was at Voris's house, and Michael Voris had gay porn or on his laptop that he was watching when the boy came over, the young man came over. So your progression, as you had stated earlier, is absolutely true, because, you know, how long has Michael been watching homosexual pornography?
That is completely uncalled for. That if you had a human resources department, that could be sexual harassment charge. I mean, that's an invitation. That's kind of predatory behavior. That's it's inappropriate. It's wrong, and it's kind of predatory, and it should break a human resources. You should be uncomfortable seeing that, whether you're male or female, whether you're interested or not. There's no place for that. It's ridiculous.
Well,
it's
with
stupid.
your boss, no less.
Yeah, come on.
Right.
Yeah.
It amazes me in the comment section how many people just didn't see that as sexual harassment. Even on Hunter's interview, people were saying, well, he said he wasn't groomed. He didn't know what was going on.
I tell you, that's idolatry. They are the most clever people. You cannot out clever a narcissist, so don't try. You cannot. Now again, what are we looking for? Sometimes we're selfish. Hey, I want free movies. I want steaks. So watch yourself. If you're selfish, if you're attracted to these people for selfishness, if you want to get on their bootstraps because maybe somebody has a lot of money, a lot of influence, a lot of clout, and by you being in their inner circle, it pumps you up. And so we have to be careful of idolatry. We have to be careful of our own selfish desires. That can get us into trouble.
So, Lynn, we have a few more minutes left. Let me ask you this question. What haven't I asked you that I should have?
The only thing is, what can we do now? Where can we go to from here? Number one, if you are a member of a cult or a cult-like situation, the best thing to do, the experts will say, let me give you an expert if you want to look up cults, Rick Alan Ross. He went by Rick Ross for many years, but there's a famous rapper by that name. So Rick Alan Ross. And the narcissist people, Ross Rosenberg and Ramani, I believe her name is, Les Carter, run in the opposite direction. Leave quietly from a narcissist. Don't explain yourself. Don't try to call them up and persuade them. Don't give them a second or a third chance. Don't give them any new chances. And very importantly, do not fill the space with something right away, because you might be tempted to just jump onto another YouTuber, jump onto another. Why don't you take the time, for those of us who have been bamboozled and blindsided by this and saddened and grieving, why don't we go to a daily mass at the time we would take watching a Vortex and the headlines? What's that about? That's about 15 or 20 minutes. Do something holy, productive. I'm continuing to shed social media, and I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying the quiet time. I'm going to get ready to write a new book next year, and I need to shed all this noise. We have too much noise coming in. Don't just leave one and go to another. And when the Church Militant news came out, my husband said, I hate to make a joke of this, but it's like that movie, The Truman Show. If anyone has watched The Truman Show with Jim Carrey, one of the final scenes, so The Truman Show was about, they took a baby from infancy and had a camera on his life, and he thought it was reality. And in the end, I don't want to spoil, but in the end, so it was live streaming to people. And in the end, you have two security guards biting into their burger and fries, watching the TV, and The Truman Show ends and it cuts off. And the guys go, and they were watching this for 20 years. They were watching the show 20 or 30 years. And they're like, okay, change the channel. What next? So it's like easy come, easy go for some people. So don't be tempted to fill your void with somebody else. Just like financially, your financial portfolio, you don't want to put all your money into one situation. For all those people, and I met some retreatants who I give all my money, I give a lot to Church Militant, they're probably very, maybe they're upset. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Spread it around. Don't get so caught up in it, and break free from it if you have to. It's hard to break free, especially maybe some of his inner circle right now. It might be hard to break free. Don't realize you were a fool. You're not a fool. You were not a fool to do this. They are so clever. You cannot out-clever them. You can't get them to tell you words that they will change. They can't come back and give you the smartest words. I remember seeing Michael Voris did a YouTube in 2016 to explain, hey, I did a lot of terrible things, and I was homosexual, and now I'm not. And I was led to believe that he has overcome it and that he was chaste. And I remember watching some vortexes, and he had a ring on his finger. And at first I thought, oh, he's married. Somebody ought to check his hairstyle there, his wife, and then I just thought, wow, I thought he was married. And then I'm like, wow, I'm impressed with this story. So then I thought that ring represented chastity. And so maybe it did for a period of time. We don't know. It's not our business. But don't follow. If you're following one person, you have to process it. You have to take some time to process it. And so don't jump on to anyone else. Just focus on yourself, on your prayer life, on your holiness. Volunteer in your local community. Go to a daily mass. We don't need to spend more time on YouTube. We need to spend more time with our friends in real life and our loved ones. Except for, yes, watch this channel. Christine is putting out. Thank you so much for putting out a lot of good content. You're the only person talking about this. It's secrecy. That was what goes on in cults. Secrecy and reshaping of your thoughts. So that's it. Take some time out. You don't have to rush into any new following of anybody.
Well, thank you for that, Lynn. And, but it does go for me too. And if Church Militant would come out and just be transparent, I wouldn't need to do this. But they're
exactly.
not. Yeah,
right.
They're not. They are continuing to spin everything. And, they think that programming is their key to success. And it has nothing to do with the programming, but a lot to do with being transparent. Okay, Lynn, everybody, folks, I will have every way you can follow Lynn in the description area below. And if Lynn, you'll just stay on for a second while I do the close, okay?
Okay, thank you.
All right, everyone. I am so glad that you got a chance to meet Lynn. She is truly a remarkable person and has given us so much insight into not just Church Militant and Michael Voris, but the keys to look out so that when you start to follow somebody else or you're in a work environment that doesn't treat you with respect, don't stay, get out. Listen to that little voice. Your guardian angel, your Holy Spirit is guiding you, is helping you to see things the way they really are. Call upon them. Ask for discernment. Ask for wisdom. And they will not disappoint you at all. My guardian angel, I talk to my guardian angel all day long. I give him jobs to do all day long. But more importantly, remember, eternal life is forever. Got a plan? Bye-bye.